So we've got breaking news from the Middle East, and this is significant. Moments ago, the Israeli military is saying that it conducted a strike against senior Hamas leadership. Multiple explosions reported not in Gaza, but in the capital city of Doha in Qatar. In Tel Aviv, Greg Palcott's watching that story. And Greg, it's early. What have you learned from there? Hello.
Well, Bill, this war just stepped up by one more step. In the past half hour or so, we have gotten reports that for the very first time, Israel has struck Doha, Qatar, aiming at the Hamas leadership there. Remember, Qatar is one of the two mediating countries, Qatar and Egypt, trying to come up with an end to this war. And now Israel has struck out at the country, but not the country itself, struck out at Hamas leadership, which away from Gaza uses Qatar as a base of operation. And according to Israeli television, and we do not have this confirmed, but Israeli media claims that 5 of the top leaders of Hamas at their headquarters was targeted by an Israeli, an IDF airstrike, and they were killed. Again, no confirmation of this, but it's quite a blow. I mean, they justify it in their own statement, saying that these individuals were for years members of the leadership and leading the terror operations, directly responsible for, in the words of Israel, the brutal October 7th massacre, and have been orchestrating and managing the war against the state of Israel. But Bill, I mean, we have to also understand it's these individuals that are involved in negotiations to try to end the war, that they are talking to the other side. They are talking to the United States. They are in a safe country specifically for that reason.
Regarding the Israeli strike in Doha, how much time or how much of a heads up did the U.S. get, and does the president support the strike?
This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal. President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and this war to end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
To be clear, the president disagrees with the location of the strike, and that he passed that along to the Prime Minister Netanyahu.
The president just confirmed that in the statement that I just read to you, which I spoke with him about before coming out here.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Sana hindi pumani yung kotse. Oh my God!
في حماس استهداف الوفد المفاوض لحركة حماس أثناء اجتماعه.
Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach HaKodash. and double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, salutations, and blessings to the house of David, which is the elect. And, as you just saw, this is, sort of breaking news, but it, happened earlier today. But, I wasn't able to do a video on it when it first came out. But you had the state of the 48ers, right? The Israelis, they attacked, right? They had a airstrike on Doha, which is the capital of Qatar. And they were, using the guise of, trying to attack the Hamas leadership that is over, that was over in Qatar to, work on a ceasefire agreement that Trump, came up with, right? I believe earlier yesterday, he made a statement, right, that the 48ers, they accepted his peace terms, and the Hamas should accept, his peace terms as well. Okay, or there would be consequences. So you had the Hamas leadership that was in Qatar, to basically, speak with the mediators of the Qatarian people, because they were saying that Hamas was likely, to consider accepting the peace deal that Trump was coming up with. So exactly, as soon as that information comes out that, there may be a potential ceasefire agreement, you have this, strike on the politicians of the Hamas, right? They were, I was reading some other information, or listening rather, to some, I think it was Al Jazeera. And it was saying how that the people that were going to negotiate, right? Those are negotiators of Hamas. Those people are like the politicians, and you're not supposed to, a diplomatic a nation, right? A nation that is looking to have peace, have a sustainable peace. You're not supposed to, attack the politicians. But what the 48ers did was just that, right? Which caused a bunch of nations, Arab nations, to come out and condemn, the attack, calling it, provocative, calling it a major escalation, all these things, right? So, it just goes to show you how, from one day to the next, right, Yahweh, Bashim Hawashai can, completely, cause something to happen that can be a significant escalation, to a situation. All right. And we know that all of these things ultimately is prophecy, right? And all is going to lead into the fulfillment of, the end of this age, right? And the wars, right? The day of, the Armageddon, right? The valley of Yehoshaphat, okay, Jehoshaphat. So when we see all of these things take place, it's just another step towards that. So here in this article, it's a very brief article, but I just wanted to read it. It says, Qatar says U.S. warning came after Israeli strike started. Okay, because you had, which I showed earlier, you had that statement that the Department of Secretary, that bitch, I forget her name, but she basically said that Iran, that as soon as the 48ers made Trump aware of it, right, that they were going to do the attack, that he hit up Qatar and let them know. But it says here that Qatar denied receiving advance warning from the United States of Israeli strikes on Doha on Tuesday, saying the notification came after the attack had already started. Statements circulating about Qatar being informed of the attack in advance are false. The call received from an American official came after explosions sounded from the Israeli attack in Doha, Qatari Foreign Minister spokesman Majid Al-Ansari posted on X. All right, so you have the Mossad, right? That their old motto was through deception we engage in warfare, something to that effect. And you can clearly see that type of action and behavior is the way that, not only the 48ers are operating, but also America, right, via the Trump administration, and that is causing a lot of these countries to become more and more, have more and more of a disdain, toward America because of the way that they're dealing, right? Not only are they justifying, right, the atrocities and the war crimes that the 48ers are doing, they're partaking in it as well. You see, because just like with the strikes on Iran when it happened in June, Iran, right? I believe like that's the day before. It might have been a day before. Trump had made a statement, said that the talks, right, the nuclear talks are going good, and he expected another meeting to happen, right? Another nuclear program meeting to take place the day before the 48ers attacked him. And then he said, of course, we knew that this was going to happen. We knew this a few days in advance. So if you knew a few days in advance, why would you, sit there and lie and say that the talks are going good? Okay. So the same thing with this, right? They didn't just find out today that the 48ers were going to attack Qatar. All right. They knew that was going to happen because, as everybody knows, the BB, right, and the 48ers, they don't do nothing unless they have the full backing by America. Okay. And they didn't just come up with this idea to attack those Hamas leaders in Qatar just today. So, like I said, America knew that. And this is why you had, a lot of these Arab nations, they, came out and spoke their support for Qatar. All right. You had Saudi Arabia, which said that they are willing to, support in any way they can. The UAE condemned the Israeli attack and supported Qatar. All right. Iran, they made a statement as well. Or I believe China also made a statement. So you see a growing sense that the 48ers, and then one of these guys I was watching, like I said, I was watching the Al Jazeera. I was watching their live about it, and they were saying how they were moving, how the 48ers are moving. It's like they're self-sabotaging because they are doing things that is causing, right, them to become more and more isolated, right, and to be seen as being the aggressor more and more, right, and in turn doing things like this, like attacking a sovereign country's land, right, without any regard for their citizens. 'Cause I believe I've seen that it said that a security officer of Qatar actually died in the attacks, right? Whereas the Hamas leaders, Hamas came out and said that their leaders survived it. So if their leaders survived it, right, and the 48ers, didn't achieve their goal, then that goes to show you that they would very well try to do this again. Because if they did it once and it didn't work, why wouldn't they try again? And that's right there can really, showcase just how wild the Amalekites are moving. And like we said, everything they're doing, whether Trump doesn't want to or not, doesn't want to back them or not, the fact is he is backing them, right? And they're going to draw Babylon into a wider confrontation, because the 40, they're not stopping, right? They're not slowing down. They're doing things that are becoming more and more destabilizing, right? And as the scripture says here in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 4, verse Jeremiah 49, verse 20. Therefore, hear the counsel of the Lord. that he hath taken against Edom, and his purposes that he had purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock will draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. See, and the least of the flock of the Edomites are who? The Amalekites. All right, the small hats. And who are they drawing out? They're drawing out Babylon, right? Babylon the Great, all right? The mainstay of the kingdom of Esau. See, they're drawing them out into conflict, right? War against these various different nations, primarily Russia, China, and the Arab nations, with Iran, right, being the head of that. Okay, so let me get this one last scripture here in 2nd Ezra 15, verse 20. Let's start at let's go straight to the point. Start at 28. It says, "Behold, an horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia," okay, all of those Arabic countries that are in that region, right, which, really surround Amalek, being in the land of Israel, right, but, ultimately being the Edomites there, right, which you also do have some Arabs in that land as well, okay, because the scripture spoke about how they were going to part the Lord's land. See, because at the end of the day, none of those, heathens belong there. And this is why this is all happening, right, because it's for the controversy of Zion and for the Lord to bring us back into that land. See, what is that? Ezekiel 36 that speaks about the all of Idumea and the residue of the heathen that parted the Lord's land. Reading back here, verse 29, it says, "Where the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Also the Carmanians, which are the Iranians," and you look it up in history, "raging in wrath shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them," right? Join battle with who? The dragons of Arabia, right? They're going to join forces. It says, "and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians," right? And the land of the Assyrians here is speaking about America, Babylon the Great. But you also, in that region, you also have a lot of American bases. Okay, I think they said the biggest American base is in Qatar. So a lot of American assets are over in that Middle East region, where these dragons of Arabia, right? They're going to, as it says in verse 31, and then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature. See, they're going to remember their nature of being that, the Ishmaelites are known as being a wild man, right? I think that's in Genesis. It speaks about the Ishmaelites being wild. But like I said, all of those nations that are over there, they're a bunch of they're a mixed multitude. That's what the Arab means, right? Mixed multitude of people. So the dragons having an upper hand and remembering their nature is, them going back to that, being that wild type of nation of people. It says, "and if they shall turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them," right? So yeah, this vision that Ezra is seeing is basically that same vision of the valley of Yehoshaphat, right? That Joel saw, okay, and the nations coming down and fighting. All right, and what the 48ers are doing here is causing that rift, right? Causing that tension between the so-called West, right, and the so-called East. All right, and we're just going to continue to watch and see what comes of this. But at the end of the day, right, we understand that this is all leading, right? Everything is just showing that we're getting closer and closer, because the signs and the things that are happening are only adding to the tensions, right? It's only adding to these prophecies coming to pass. All right. So this is why the Lord, told us to stay in the watchman spirit, right? So that day does not come upon you as a thief. So, with that, I'm going to close it out, right? Like I said, I wanted to make this quick, and, we just going to keep watching and see what happens. But we do know that, hey, the Lord is working. So, keep praying and keep watching. All right. Until next time, giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Shalom.